former professional kicker who spent way too much time in the offensive film room.
And I'm Anthony LaFurie, an award-winning sports reporter who is officially off the Nooch bandwagon.
Oh, really? It only took you a quarter?
No, it took me 2.5.
Oh, very good. Very good. All right, guys, we are here with our waiver wire episode of the week. But real quick, at FCK Podcast on Twitter, on Instagram. If you're watching on YouTube, please go ahead and smash that like button for us. Hit subscribe on both YouTube and on Apple Podcasts. And lastly, leave us a comment if you're watching on YouTube. We'd love to hear feedback and answer all of your trade and start-sit questions. Tomorrow, we have a special guest on our Trade Target episode, the Fantasy Doctor. We look forward to talking with him and hearing who he has as his buy low, sell highs.
All right, Paul, it's time for the fastest 90 seconds in fantasy football, the rundown.
High-powered matchup of the week was the Steelers and Ravens. You know, we still haven't seen everything we wanted to from Lamar Jackson. He had a better game. The big story here was J.K. Dobbins is getting more and more in the mix. We've been talking about him for the last couple of weeks. Juju is still the safety valve for Ben in that game. Tua got his first win for the Dolphins, not loving anybody from that lineup. Tua was very mediocre. Cooper Kupp finally broke out with 11 catches. In Kansas City, Mahomes was sensational. They destroyed the Jets as we knew they would. Dalvin Cook was an absolute monster with 3 touchdowns for the Vikings, leading them in an upset victory over the Packers. Indy won by 20 points over Detroit, but even though Rivers' stat line says 3 touchdown passes, he wasn't all that spectacular. Detroit, they're not using Galladay and Swift effectively, and now Galladay is hurt. The Raiders beat the Browns 16-6, but you know, we haven't seen it from Baker. We thought he might be there from after his 5 touchdown performance. He wasn't able to bounce back. Josh Jacobs finally went over 100 yards. Joe Burrow was absolutely sensational yesterday in the Bengals upset victory over Tennessee. And the Buffalo Bills knocked off the New England Patriots 24-21. Damian Harris is the lead dog now. It's pretty assured. We may talk about him shortly. Drew Lock showed he can be a big-time player in big-time situations. Fant had a pretty good game, as well as Mike Williams. Russ keeps on cooking, putting up 37 points against the San Francisco 49ers defense. Lockett was good. Metcalf was great. And the 49ers lost Garoppolo and Kittle. We'll talk more about that later. Saints won in overtime against the Bears. And lastly, on Sunday Night Football, the Eagles won 23-9. There's a couple players that we're going to be talking about for the Eagles that really came into prominence. All right, and it is time to reveal our top 5 waiver wire ads of the week. It is starting to get into crunch time for our fantasy football leagues. Heading into week 9, we are already past the halfway point of the season, so make sure you're using your fab money if somebody comes up that you think can be a difference maker on your team. Really quick, our criteria for this is they have to be under 50% owned in ESPN fantasy leagues. There are guys that are only 55% owned and 60% owned that do warrant consideration as well. So you need to check that out in your league. So, Ant, we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2. You go first, I go second, and then we'll hit him with our number 1. So hit him with your 5, 4, 3, 2 waiver wire pickups of the week.
Okay, so real quick, number 5, I've got Jared Cook for no other reason that Emmanuel Sanders is on the COVID list, and I am legitimately worried about Michael Thomas being phased out or traded in New Orleans. Number 4, Nick Foles. I know things didn't look so great for him last week, but his weeks 13 through 16 opponents include Detroit, Houston, Minnesota, Jacksonville. He's also owned in 8% of leagues. Give me some of that action. Number 3, Corey Davis. He's had at least 12.5 points per game. Went off against Cincy. Only owned 36% of leagues. And number 2, Paulie, your boy Damian Harris Stoltz, 16 for 102 and a score. He's now proven he's the man and somehow 70% available.
Yeah, I'll instead of going with the ones that I agree with you on, I'll give you first Nick Foles. I know you made your big case for Foles. I thought it was a really wonderful story about the tales of Nick Foles' career. But their line is so bad. Like Montgomery is being hit in the backfield more than anybody else. Foles doesn't have a ton of time to throw. He's not elusive enough. I will hold my judgment on whether or not I think he's going through his progression appropriately, even though he doesn't, because he doesn't have time. I'm not picking him up. He didn't come near my list, but if you need a quarterback, you've been right on these before. So
The I was starting to get off, but then I looked at his schedule, and again, I don't really see a really vaunted pass rush there that you got to worry with the line. The Lions, no pass rush to speak of. Houston, yeah, they have J.J. Watt. I understand that, but he's a little past it. Minnesota, they're clearly sellers. Who knows who's even going to be there? And then Jacksonville is Jacksonville.
your number 5, Jared Cook, I think is interesting because you and I at the beginning of the season, we were not Jared Cook guys. We thought that like he caught something like 40 passes last year and 9 were touchdowns, which is just a ridiculous ratio.
Yeah.
But with the lack of, viable receivers at the moment, whenever they get inside the 20, they're tossing Jared Cook the ball, even though he's not getting a lot of targets, in the first half. He's worth considering. I kind of like that.
Perfect bye week fill-in tight end.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yep.
And that to me is worth number 5 on the list.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. My number 5 is your number 3, and that's Corey Davis. He's scored in double digits now every single game, and he's had 10 targets or more in the last 2 games. We know how good he was out of Western Michigan or Central Michigan. I can't remember. He was the 5th overall pick, and he looks like he's finally coming into prominence with A.J. Brown being able to take the top off of the defense. He's looked pretty good. My number 4, I really debated putting him as high as number 1 on my list, and that's Jalen Reagor out of TCU. This is a guy that the Eagles drafted ahead of Justin Jefferson, ahead of Brandon Ayuk, ahead of T. Higgins. This is the best wide receiver draft class since 1996 with, the Marvin Harrison, T.O., Randy Moss class. Jalen Reagor is a downfield threat. They're trying to get him the ball on some bubble screens, on some quick outs. He looked really good yesterday, and what was his first shot since the first week of the season. He looked healthy. His one drop in the end zone, by the way, he scored a touchdown. He dropped another one in the end zone, but he's wearing like a brace on his finger. That could have been a 2-touchdown game. I'm buying Jalen Reagor big time here. My number 3 is somebody that I literally texted everybody who plays DraftKings to put this guy on your lineup. He was $3,500, and that's Darnell Mooney. This is another guy from the rookie receiver class who has now had 25 targets since week 3. He has supplanted Anthony Miller as the number 2 guy there in Chicago, and Foles throws it deep to him at least once per game. My number 2 is Dallas Goedert. He came off IR somewhat unexpectedly on, I believe it was Friday or Saturday, and they slowly worked him in. I know Reagor looked a lot better than Goedert did and got more targets than Goedert did on Sunday, but they're going to work Goedert in more and more, and he is the guy there. He's also a phenomenal red zone option.
I see that's really good takes there. Mooney, you could pick him up and change your team name to the Mooney Blues.
Very
Just
good.
saying. I love my team name references there. But yeah, no, it's really, really good stuff. Goddard, I wish I would have put Goddard at number 5 instead of Cook because I'm not a big believer in Cook's, production. It's just the opportunity was there.
All right, who is your number 1?
My number 1s. This is the part where we say Paulie's really smart. J.K. Dobbins. I think he's one more big week away from becoming J.K. Dobbins Stoltz. Listen, 15 for $113. He finally got his opportunity with Mark Ingram out of the lineup, more touches. He took a big step towards becoming the team's feature back, and he's still only owned in 47% of leagues. He needs to be owned in 100% of leagues by the end of Wednesday.
I've now made the case for J.K. Dobbins for a couple weeks now. I mean, I just flat out think he's the most talented back in that offense. And I'll say it again, because he is faster, because he is more explosive, linebackers and edge rushers need to cheat in order to contain Dobbins and Lamar Jackson in the read option. Whereas Gus Edwards is a little slower, Mark Edwards is a little slower. You can get a linebacker caught cheating one way or the other. He bodes well for Lamar Jackson as well as for himself for that offense. I didn't actually, I thought J.K. Dobbins was above 50% ownership, so I didn't put him on. But my number one is your number two, Damian Harris. I have been touting, I try not to repeat guys on this list, but I've been touting for 3 weeks now. Damian Harris has been my number one waiver out of the week, that he will be the starter once he's healthy, and that is proven to be true. He now is averaging something like 6 yards a carry over his past few weeks where he's been the number one. The only thing to look out for with Damian Harris is that the Patriots do abandon their lead back, the traditional Sony Michel back, who is now Damian Harris, in games where they are losing. And that's when Cam is at his worst, when he's just forced to throw out of the pocket. So be selective if you pick up Damian Harris. Make sure it's a game that the Patriots are going to be competitive in. If they're going to be competitive, Damian Harris will touch the ball 15 to 20 times and 5 to 6 yards per carry, and he's the goal line guy as well.
Yeah, another guy, like I said with Dobbins, he's available in 70% of leagues, believe it or not. He needs to be owned in 100 by the end of waivers on Wednesday. 100% he needs to be owned.
And I want to also throw in a couple nominees, a couple names that I had written down. So the first is La'Mical Pirine. He was in both of our lists last week. The Jets obviously got killed. They were still throwing Frank Gore out there. I don't necessarily think La'Mical Pirine's good, but he's okay. He's worth owning. He's the better pass catcher of the two. Jacoby Myers, he did this last year at one point where he became the number one target and supplanted N'Keal Harry even when Brady was the quarterback. Jacoby Myers is 16 targets over the last 2 weeks. I don't think that's a fluke. He's a pretty good route runner. Jordan Wilkins, I don't think he's very good, but the Colts are very frustrated with Jonathan Taylor as their lead dog right now, so they're trying other things out, and Jordan Wilkins does have a better yards per carry than Jonathan Taylor. Gerald Everett is a pretty decent one, who I believe he's the better pass catcher than Tyler Higbee. I believe Higbee's the better blocker, so if you need to stream a tight end, that's not a bad option. And my guy that I added to this late and debated putting in there, who I would even put in there ahead of your number 5 tight end with Jared Cook, is Ross Dwelly. Kittle, it was just announced, is officially out for, I believe it's 8 weeks. What we've seen in the past is that Ross Dwelly fills that Kittle role decently. 4, 5, 6 targets, few catches every week. That's not a bad one, especially in deeper leagues.
What about Mysteriopoulos being out? You think that could hurt him?
It'd be interesting. Jeff Garcia made a really great point last night, which is that Garoppolo sort of just runs this offense. Like you send him the play and he does what you tell him to do. Whereas both C.J. Beathard as well as Nick Mullins show some more creativity when they run this offense. Now, Mullins put up 230 yards in a quarter and a half against that really soft zone yesterday. He threw a few passes to Dwelly. Again, I don't love Dwelly. It's why he wasn't top 5 on my list. But I don't think he gets killed too much by not having mysterious Jimmy Garoppolo out there.
I'll hit you with just a couple of quick mentions, even though we're pretty much out of time here. Derek Carr, referencing you, I'll just say his week 12 through 16 opponents. Jets, Colts, that's a tough one. But then after that, he gets the Chargers and he gets Miami. Pretty good matchups the rest of the way. Other honorable mention, Troymaine Pope. We don't know what the deal is with that running back situation with the Chargers. He seems like another do-it-all guy. He's worth stashing until Eckler's back.
Yeah, I'd love to comment on that one quick. That was a great one, and I actually had him written down somewhere in my notes and forgot that one. What they're looking to do is they look to give him essentially the Eckler role until Eckler gets back. He is a Darren Sproles type back, really small, good pass catcher, finds space, good acceleration. And you and I have said all season we are not impressed with Joshua Kelly, and they're letting Justin Jackson play, take most of the runs, right, most of the carries, and then working Tremaine Pope on passing downs, as well as he played a little bit of slot last night. Thanks for tuning in this week, everyone, to our Waiver Wire episode. Leave us a comment on YouTube. Hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube as well, at FCK Podcast on Twitter, on Instagram. And make sure you tune in tomorrow for our trade targets, buy low, sell high. We have a special guest on at Your Fantasy Doctor on Instagram. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone.